The Oklahoma City Thunder play the perfect game and get a win over the Cleveland Cavaliers despite not having their top two centers. How did the Thunder pull this off? SGA solidifies his MVP candidacy and more.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're talking about the Thunder getting a big win over the Cleveland Cavaliers. At one point, the Thunder led by 42 points. They end up winning 134-114 without Chet Holmgren, without Isaiah Hartenstein, and solidifying the biggest win of the season, albeit technically the smallest win of the season with their small ball lineups. But when you look at this game, you know, I picked the Thunder to lose this game both on Locked On Thunder and on Thunder on SI. And the reality was, on both of those platforms, I mentioned for the Thunder to win this game, it's not impossible. The path to victory is there. It's just so difficult to reach that path that it's hard to predict it to happen. You know, and that they were still going to be great without Hartenstein. But in this particular matchup, it's going to be very difficult. But the Thunder played the absolute perfect game. They took this roster and got the absolute most out of it to win this game. And there's a few different reasons for that. So let's just go over from yesterday's podcast, which had a lot of people hooting and hollering, right? By the way, those same people, never to be found whenever I pick the Thunder to win and they lose to the Wimby-less Spurs, but alas. So in the first half, the Thunder shot 57.9% from three and blew out Cleveland. What did I say on yesterday's show? They need an outstanding, otherworldly shooting game. Check. When the game was in the balance, check. Now they only finished with 34% from three. They played a ton of garbage time. Adam Flagler could not stop shooting the basketball in the fourth quarter. I don't blame him for that, but it did mess with the percentages. So that's a check mark right there. They needed Shai to have an MVP level game and go for 40-50. He went for 40 in three quarters. Had this game actually been in the balance, you easily could have seen him going for 50. So let's call that a check mark as well. You needed Jalen Williams to be big in this game, and I believe he was. I mean, again, the box score is not going to be indicative of how great that J-Dub was. It was only 19 points on 57% shooting, but the defense was just outstanding. 3 steals, 2 blocks. So that's a big check. And then you had to get another game. Like whenever you're talking games, you're talking the Isaiah Joe 8 games in the Garden. You're talking Aaron Wiggins going off against New York in the Paycom Center. You had to get an outlier game, for lack of a better term. You got 3 of them. I mean, you got a 6-for-9 shooting game from Lu Dort. Big game Lu continues to be there. You got a 4-for-7 shooting game from Isaiah Joe, making 57% of his threes. You had Brandon Carlson go 3-for-6 from 3 and just enter the game in the first quarter. And in that first quarter alone, get 6 points, 2-for-2 from beyond the arc. And entering that fourth quarter of garbage time, he had 8 points, the exact same amount as Donovan Mitchell, which brings us to our next point. If you're going to win this game, you have to give no wiggle room to Mitchell and to Garland, because you're going to have to kind of concede something in the paint. And so those 2 guys cannot break loose. That's another big check. Mitchell finishes with 8 points on 3-for-15 shooting. And Garland did go for 20. I thought it was a really impressive game from Garland. He capitalized on some of the open ones, but he also hit some really difficult shots. And Garland was just really good in this game, but you limited Mitchell. And then the unforeseen happened, something that you could not have predicted. And for everyone victory lapping in the comments about believing and being a homer in this Thunder team, I grant you that. Great job picking the Thunder. No one would have guessed that Jared Allen played 16 minutes and that Evan Mobley played 18 minutes in this entire game. Now, some of that is garbage time, but not so fast, my friend. For comparison's sakes, what happened in this game was the Thunder deserve a ton of credit for dictating the terms and conditions of this game. When everybody knew what was going to happen, they were going to have to play small. They forced Cleveland into going small. How did they do it? They sped up Cleveland. They got them rushed and they got them into turnovers. They scored 30 points off of turnovers. And Cleveland felt like, okay, like kind of in a sense of panic where the Thunder can overwhelm you. Okay, well, we've got to go small for small. That way we're athletic across the board and we can also kind of negate some of this stuff in transition. And last week in the first half, Mobley and Allen played 16 minutes in the first half alone. Total tonight, Mobley and Allen played 18 and 16. In the first half of this game, those two guys, they had over 16 points on Wednesday. These two guys have 13 minutes, 13 minutes tonight after being over 16 minutes on Wednesday. They just took them out of the game. They tried to go small and match the Thunder, but guess what? There's no other team in the league designed to play small ball the way Oklahoma City is. They're legitimately built for it. So when you try to play their game, there's nothing you can do. Like, you've lost at that point. It's the same thing that happened to Willie Green in the playoffs. It's the same thing that's happened to many coaches. The only coach who's been disciplined enough to not go small is Jason Kidd, but that's a very unique set of circumstances because Jason Kidd, of course, he has two bigs who you're going to play for 48 minutes no matter what. There's not really another option. They tried to go small, Cleveland did, and it just did not work. And on the flip side of all of that, like to put a bow on all that, the Thunder did what they had to do. The Thunder executed to an extremely high level, and Cleveland did not. Cleveland kept kicking the ball left, right, and center, 21 turnovers. They only shot 31% from three. And they just had no rhythm to their offense. They had no sense of groove, no sense of purpose. I mean, in that first half, when they're still trying to make a run, they shot 8 for 20 from three. They made 43% of their shots. It was over. It was over. So the Thunder deserve a lot of credit for doing everything right. The checklist that we laid out yesterday on this show, they executed it to a T. I don't know how many more times you can get their perfect game if you just kept playing this game over and over again, but all you needed it for was tonight. And they won. And that's the making of this team. I think that the only takeaway, I told you yesterday that like this game, just based on the makeup of the Thunder, it couldn't really give you a massive takeaway because they don't have Chet, they don't have Hartenstein, and like there's no scenario where this team reaches their apex without those two guys. But the thing about this team that you have to appreciate is their ability to answer the call and adapt. You can close your eyes right now and think of a lot of teams around the NBA, particularly one in Phoenix and many others, that if they went into a game with on paper this much of a mismatch, this much of a kind of tilted affair, they wouldn't have even shown up. They wouldn't have even competed. But you can trust this Thunder team to compete night in and night out, just like we said yesterday, and they went and got the win. And shout out to the crowd. I mean, the crowd was incredible. The crowd was into it from the word go, and it sounds silly because the Thunder fans are always great, but like it just felt, sitting there, that the fan base knew this team needs some extra oomph behind it. And they delivered. They delivered on the court. They delivered off the court. And the Thunder get their biggest win of the year. I know that they just beat Boston. I get it. And I still would consider Boston a better title contender than Cleveland. I think that all three teams are in tier one, but if you had to then rank tier one, I think you go, with Boston and Oklahoma City ahead of Cleveland. But I get you just beat Boston. This was a totally different beast where you're playing Mobley and Allen without a big man and you play them off the floor. That's really impressive. That deserves a ton of credit. Coming up, let's talk Lu Dort. Let's talk SGA. Let's talk the entire individual game for OKC. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at Robinhood, go check out Robinhood today because with Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privilege is there for you. The very privilege is no longer exclusive. Robinhood Gold has your annual IRA contributions that are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash and non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up today at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. 3% match requires. Robinhood Gold at $5 per month for 1 year from the first match. Must keep funds in an IRA account for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost for over 8 times the national average savings amount. Interest, and of course, interest rates claims is based upon the data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. What a win this was. I mean, I think that this was their best win. It's either this game or the Boston game, and I'd pick this game. I would really pick this game. And the Thunder were able to pull out the win. Vegas stayed true. They kept the Thunder favored literally all day, and this guy fell for the sucker bet of Cleveland +2. That moves my record for the season to 25-14-2. So got to be better than that. Of course, that's actually a really good record, but lost one, got to bounce back today against Dallas, where the Thunder are favored again. We can get into that game coming up, but I do want to start with SGA. MVP level stuff from him. 40 points in 3 quarters, 8 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 turnovers. Now, some of you might have caught, his wrist was wrapped up on television, and if you watch the post-game press conferences, it was wrapped up there too. I asked Shai about that. Shai told me that it was just from falling on it. It did happen in tonight's game. He fell on it, and he added multiple times, by the way, that he fell on it. But he said he's feeling good, so we'll see what happens. Second night of a back-to-back, but him feeling good is a good sign to start things out. But I thought that Shai controlled this game, and he had a perfect blend of, hey, guys are out. I need to elevate my game without doing too much. When you look at his, 65% shooting from the floor, if you took out some of those threes, he's over 70%. And I only say that because, watching this game, some of those threes that he missed, he went 1 for 5 from 3. I mean, it was pretty obvious. It was pretty obvious he was going for that kill shot. He was going for that dagger 3, not in the sense of the scoreboard, but in the sense of like putting a bow on his game, because they happened kind of in that third quarter when the game was already coming to it, and he wasn't going to get to play in the fourth quarter. And it felt like he was trying to get his money's worth from this contest. So like those are shots that like I don't think he would have taken, like those transition threes, or such. I don't think he takes if this game was flowing differently than it did. So I'll give him a little bit of a boost efficiency wise there, but he was still a +32 in this contest. And I just thought that his pace and his temperament in this game was big. I mean, he even got into it a little bit with Kenny Atkinson after a Lu Dort through, which brings us to Lu Dort, 6 for 9 from beyond the arc, and he continues to deliver in big games. I thought that his night was really impressive on the defensive end, just smothering, just smothering Donovan Mitchell. And Mitchell, like, I just think this is an awful matchup for him, and we see this around the league. There's certain guys that match up better with stars. Like you can note. Herb Jones is a really good matchup for Shai. Now, it's not to this degree. Like Shai does not get locked up to this degree, but they're 2 totally different players in terms of stratosphere. But Lu Dort is clearly an awful matchup for Donovan Mitchell. Back-to-back really bad games from him, but that's also a credit to Lu. Like Lu deserves a ton of credit for blanketing him on that defensive end. And then offensively, I thought that you watch this game and there's only one possession that you can put under a microscope. And that's what we typically do with Dort, really since he's been here. Is put him under a microscope offensively, like, oh, why'd you drive there? Oh, that's a bad shot, Lu. I thought there was one moment, and it happened early in the game where he took a 3 off the dribble, where you probably could have, kept the offense in rhythm for a little bit longer of that possession to try to find something. Other than that, he took excellent shot attempts. He played under control, and it led to 72% shooting from the floor, and 6 for 9 shooting from three. And it led to 22 points. And of course, we know what he did defensively with a steal and a block. I thought J-Dub, from the onset of this game, he was getting downhill. I think he started out 1 for 2. Both shot attempts were at the rim. I thought he got fouled on the first one. The refs disagree. He only shot 2 free throws on this one. Shai shot 5. The Thunder as a team shot 11 free throws tonight compared to the 21 of Cleveland. Some of that comes with the size difference, right? The Thunder are naturally going to have to foul a little bit more being undersized. But again, I stress, I don't care about the other right foul number because that's a totally separate conversation to me. There are times like in that first shot attempt from J-Dub that I thought J-Dub was fouled and he's not getting the call. And that has nothing to do with how much the Thunder foul or how much the Thunder, don't foul. Like it is all about gaining a whistle and gaining that benefit of the whistle, which the last 2 games, J-Dub had 8 and 6 free throw attempts. Like you thought it was kind of turning a little bit. It didn't quite turn tonight, but overall, I thought this game was the game that J-Dub can really stake his claim to all-star and all-defensive status. I think he's going to get into the all-star game, not, of course, by the fan vote, but remember, the fan vote is only half the battle. The coaches are going to pick the reserves. And what do coaches like? Scratch that. What do coaches love? They love winning. They love defense. And on the best team in the NBA record-wise, tied for it now with Cleveland, you have to be deserving of more than one all-star because Shai's a lock. And what does J-Dub do? He plays excellent defense. And Shai went through his resume today of just literally defending centers, guards, wings, 1 through 5, 3 steals, 2 blocks for J-Dub. He had 5 assists to boots, 6 rebounds, and we already mentioned the 19 points. I thought J-Dub deserves a ton of credit for this win. Also, got to shout out Brandon Carlson. I know that like I'm the G League guy, right? I'm one of the only people who go to these G League games and who cover them, and so I get asked a lot about G League players, like from other media members, from you guys. Watching Brandon Carlson has been a unique experience because when you talk to Cam Woods, the Blue head coach, and you talk to Mark about what are these guys like needing to learn, what are they needing to improve upon to eventually play at the NBA level. You get a wide range of answers, but a common thread is system skills, learning the system. This is a unique system. You've got to learn how to play here. And as Mark highlighted, this is a guy who's picked up those system skills in a blink of an eye. Mark mentioned how, early in the season, he's playing in blowout minutes and he knows the whole playbook and he's ready to go. And I think that's just the benefit of a guy like Brandon Carlson. Now, I have no idea what his NBA future holds. If it's in Oklahoma City, if it's nowhere, if it's somewhere, from just watching with my own eyes, this is a 7-footer who runs the floor exceptionally hard, whether the score is lopsided in one way or the other or a really close game. He can stretch the floor with his 3-point shooting. He has really good positioning, trying to rebound the basketball to go along with that 7-foot frame. And I think that he can help you defensively as a drop big. I would struggle to call him a switchable big man even in the G League, but as a drop big man, I really like some of the tools that he has. Because again, it goes back to he's just really smart when it comes to positioning himself. That being said, it's different to have that translate to this is your first true NBA action. Because to this point, it's been all blowouts. You get into the first quarter and you're playing the best team in the NBA record-wise in Cleveland. And you play like that. You play like that, where you're picking and popping, knocking down threes. You're receiving a pass in the corner, knocking down threes. This is storybook level stuff for a guy who went undrafted, for a guy who was signed, off the scrap heap from the G League, and then signed to a standard contract, and then waived, and then signed to a 10-day contract. It's just awesome for a guy like that to succeed because, again, going back to the time with the Blue, like getting to interact with him, talk to him, like he's a really good dude. So he's one of those guys that's easy to kind of hope that they do well. And he did really, really well. And that's a hard skill because they've been in this situation with the road trip, with the Blue schedule, where he has been a low minute player and hasn't really gotten to ramp up. Like he hasn't really gotten to get his feet wet. So you look at his stretch here. He went on that East Coast trip. He played 2 minutes, 8 minutes, 2 minutes. That's his extent of basketball because you're also not traveling on the road. And like, look, they have ways around this. Like they work out before games, like even before you go see them shoot around, they're in the gym at 3, 4 o'clock working out. And if you're not playing like Carlson, you're going through more intensive workouts in that time. But still, it's really tough to go cold, so to say, of not playing and not being with the G League team to play more there to bang. Here's first quarter minutes in a pivotal game. It's on you, kid, and to rise to that occasion. I thought that he was really impressive in handling that. I found it interesting that after the game, Mark said he didn't tell Carlson, like he didn't warn him, like, hey, you're going to play and you're going to play early. Because for the Thunder, like we know from hearing what they say that they're a very calculated organization. They probably had that plan lined out this afternoon. Like if the game goes this way, we're going to go to Carlson early. And to not warn him on that, I thought was interesting. Not that it's a good or bad thing. I thought it was interesting that he was able to handle that. Obviously, Mark did mention, knowing that Hartenstein's hurt, that leaves 30 minutes to fill, and he might have guessed that he'd play. But to stay ready without being tapped on the shoulder, but to go in, I thought shows the kind of player that Carlson is, and that's just very consistent, and that's just very he looks exactly how he looks in the G League to the NBA. And that's a really difficult skill. Like that's a really difficult trait. But credit to him. We'll see what his NBA career has here or otherwise. But he was really impressive. We'll talk about Caruso and we'll talk about the Dallas game all coming up. But first, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at Skims. Go check out Skims today because when I found out that Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family, but I had to give them a try myself. And let me tell you, they live up to the hype. They're incredible. I'm actually wearing them right now. I've always, wanted to try out Skims because I've heard such great things about the comfort and fit. They're perfect. They're the right style for me. Skims has changed the game here with their lineup offerings, including my personal favorite boxer briefs, but they also have classic briefs and all the designs that you want for the perfect balance of comfort and also style. Go check them out today because I am hooked on Skims. It's great. They have the moving ability to move with you and never lose the shape. It's great for you to go check them out today. The lightweight material feels amazing. It's almost like you're wearing nothing at all. Shop Skims Men at skims.com/LockedOnNBA at Skims stores. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu box to check them out and to let them know we sent you at skims.com/LockedOnNBA. Also want to tell you right now about our good friends over at FanDuel. Go check out FanDuel today because you can go and have a lot of fun. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need to make your live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. Check them out today. If you're only interested in the NBA, no problem. You can go get started at FanDuel.com with $200 in bonus bets with the official sports betting partner of the NFL. And the NBA is there for you as well. We mentioned yesterday's Cavs Thunder line. The Thunder Mavericks line is 7 points in OKC's direction in Dallas on the second night of back-to-back tonight. You can go bet on that as well at FanDuel.com. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Caruso was really impressive tonight. He went 2 for 2 from 3, 2 for 2 at the free throw line, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 10 points total, a plus 19 off the bench. I thought he was a tone-setting defender. Clearly, he got the Thunder out in transition and had that fast break dime to Shai that really felt like, in a game of statements, that felt like the first. Like that pass out to Shai into a slam, into a Cavs timeout, felt like the first moment of like, wow, they're going to pull this off. Like they're going to beat the Cavs without Chet, without Hartenstein. And I don't know like how that's considered a bad thing, that's a surprise, is because the same people considering that a surprise spent all last week saying, oh, they lost the Cavs, but they didn't have Chet. Like, obviously, this stuff matters, and the Thunder were able to overcome it in this specific game. Coming up, they play the Dallas Mavericks, second night of back-to-back. I will say, the Thunder are 7-0 in back-to-backs on the second night. Like, the second night of back-to-back, they're 7-0. Really good stuff there. I asked J-Dub and Shai about that. They knocked on the wood to make sure that that's not a jinx, so we're covered there with the whole jinx theory because they did knock on the wood there. But J-Dub just mentioned how understanding how difficult it is, like to win in this league and to win on back-to-backs. Like they really try to get themselves up for it to go embrace that challenge. And they've embraced that challenge really well all season long. And in this game against Dallas, I find it really interesting. I want to preview it real quick. We usually don't preview games, but if you're here right now, you're living and breathing Thunder basketball right now because of how fun this team is. The Mavericks released their injury report. Luka Doncic out. Derek Lively out. Kyrie Irving questionable. Kyrie, I think, is legitimately questionable. I've asked some people in Dallas, like legitimately questionable, heads or tails on if he plays. Like, because sometimes these teams have patterns, right? Like if a team upgrades this person to questionable, they're going to play, or maybe it's just kind of a cat and mouse game. So there is really no lean from my vantage point of if Kyrie plays or not. And why I think that this changes the complexity of this battle is twofold. First and foremost, just by the nature of Derek Lively being out, the Mavericks have to play small at some point. Smaller than they otherwise would, right? Like they otherwise would have Lively and Gafford on the floor at all times. But now you're going to have to go through extended stretches without a big, just like the Thunder are. So that kind of neutralizes that a little bit. And of the two, me personally, I'd rather play Gafford of the two. Like if I had to say, okay, the Mavericks are gonna only have one big, who would you prefer the Thunder have to match up with? I'd prefer Gafford. Very talented, very good. He's capable of a big game. I'd still prefer Gafford because I think Lively's that good. No Luka. That's the biggest thing. The Mavericks have beat the Thunder without Luka before, though. Keep that in mind. However, when you strip away Lively and you strip away Luka, I wonder what ripple effects this will have. Because I know what you're thinking right now. Well, PJ Washington's active. He didn't play the last game the Thunder won. He did play 2 games before that when the Thunder lost. PJ Washington's a big difference maker. And he is. He's been really good against OKC. It's one thing to be good against OKC when their defense has a checklist that you're at the very near the bottom of, right? So you think of the Mavericks and their starting 5. What do you have to do to beat them? You've got to defend Luka. Got to defend Kyrie. Got to swarm the paint and make up for your size disadvantage. Then you got to close out the PJ. Well, take away the best big on the team. You still got to swarm the paint a bit, but not as ferociously. Take away the best big on the team. Take away Luka. PJ's name slides up. And with this defense, I wonder, moving PJ up the priority list, could that deflate his production? And if that production comes down any, well, then the Thunder hold a lot of the cards here because they're already the better team. They already have the best player in this matchup, which is not even a debate because Luka's out. They already have the best player. They have the best team. They have the better defense, and they have the deeper roster. So now you're starting to stack up, right? Positive, pluses, I guess, like I would say, for this matchup. 7-point favorites at FanDuel. Do with that what you will. It is going to be tough, though. It's on the second night of back-to-back. If Kyrie doesn't play, feel very confident in the Thunder winning. If Kyrie does play, I don't think it's the, don't even bother that most people think it is. I think that the Mavericks can make a run and can have a very successful night. But it's just like it was difficult to see the Thunder's path to victory Wednesday. Like you had to go down the perfect checklist. I think that this is a game where Dallas needs a perfect game. Like Dallas has lost their margin for error with no Luka, no Lively, and then a Kyrie question mark. Now, we just saw the Thunder have no margin for error, and then they went out and played a perfect game and got the big win. Dallas can do the same thing, but I just think that the Thunder are rightfully favored, and they should win this game and stay perfect on the second night of a back-to-back, where, again, they're 7-0 on second nights of back-to-backs. Pretty cool for OKC. But we'll have a podcast for you from Dallas tomorrow. We're going to be at that game, and then I don't know how long it will be because we'll be on the road, and then back again after the Brooklyn game on Sunday. Until then, be good and be good to one another.